Oscar committed suicide, and I remember being like, good, that's what he deserves. Good, because, and I know that's a horrible thing to say, but what these men did to me.
Welcome to Fatherhood Voices, breaking the toxic cycle. Dive in as real dads bear all, the mess ups, make-ups, and every heartfelt moment in between. It's raw, it's real, and it might just change the way you see family.
Welcome to another edition of Fatherhood Voices. Now, I'm excited today because I have a special guest, and it's a very good friend that I've known for over 20 plus years. And today she's going to share her story. And boy, what a story does she have. And it's going to cover a little bit of, well, I'll just wait for her to start. But Diana Saucedo, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Absolutely. Are you ready to dive deep and go ahead and not only help yourself start to revisit and heal some of those scars, but also to help men, women, and children start the process of forgiving and healing?
Yes.
So we're going to go deep today, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to dive into Diana's story. And it's a story of a little girl that used to dress up and wait for her dad. And he never showed up for her. And so we're going to dive deep into that. And we're going to hear her story of how it felt like to be a little girl waiting for her dad and struggling with those thoughts of, why am I not good enough? And I'm going to take that line directly from you in our conversations that we had. But Diana, why don't you start off by sharing a little bit of where you grew up where you grew up at, and then we'll kind of take it from your childhood and just that story of, I want to say abandonment, and there's so many other words we can use, but it's something that so many kids are struggling with right now by their fathers not showing up. But I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, well, growing up, I did move quite a bit. So Highland Park, El Monte, a little bit in Compton, Chino Hills. So I moved a little bit, quite a bit.
Now, it's fair to say that you grew up. Now, you didn't grow up with your dad? Who did you live with, and how did that come about?
So my grandma raised me. I'm not quite sure how I ended up with her. I just know I ended up with her. I know for a little bit, when I was, I want to say about 4 or 5, I can remember, me and my mom did live with grandpa and grandma, her mom and her dad, in Highland Park. Yeah, so I have some memories of that house, but not too many memories.
Now, I know I've been trying to get you on the podcast for a while because I just think you have a very powerful story to share. And I want to say that it's a movie that a coworker turned you on to in the last couple of weeks that started this whole cycle of events that led to an emotional breakdown, to you wanting to now start the process of, coming on the podcast, and then also starting the process of, well, I'll hold that for now. But you want to share how that came about?
Yeah, so it was actually my hairdresser. So I don't even know what conversation we were having, and she was just recommending movies to watch, and she had told me, you got to watch. It's called The Tender Bar with Ben Affleck, and she told me a little bit about the movie. So I did watch it, and it hit really close to home because there was actually a part in it where the little boy gets dressed up. He starts getting ready even earlier than he's supposed to be ready. I think he's like ready maybe 2 hours before he's supposed to be. And he sits out on the porch, and he's just watching the cars go by, waiting for his dad to come pick him up. I believe to take him to a baseball game, and the dad never shows. Yeah, it hit very close to home because I do have one memory that sticks out. I lived in Almani with my grandma. I even remember what I was wearing. I was wearing like a red shirt with a little cat on it with some black pants. And my dad was supposed to come pick me up, and he never showed up. And I just remember just thinking, like, what did I do wrong? Like, why why did my dad pick up? Like, is he mad at me? Just feeling not enough, and just feeling like I did something wrong. But yeah, that movie, I do recommend that movie for everybody to see. For me, it touched really, really close to home, because I know that feeling of waiting for your dad to show up and him not showing up.
So that one moment in your life almost sealed like a trauma point when you were 5, 6 years old. And what specifically do you remember about that day? Because I know when you talk about it, you talk about it so vividly. So you remember what you were wearing, you remember where it was at, and you're a little girl. Do you remember the emotions? Were you excited? Were
I
you like,
was very excited. I was very excited for him to pick me up. And I know there had been other times where he didn't show up, but for some reason, this time is that way. For some reason, that moment stayed with me and just feeling not good enough and just thinking, like, what could I have done? Or even like, what's wrong with me that, my dad doesn't want to pick me up. But I thought, I don't know, for some reason, I thought this time he was going to pick me up. This time he was going to come, but he didn't show.
is there anything your grandma or anybody in the house that you lived with could have done to help ease the pain?
Maybe talking about it, maybe why he didn't show up, or even encourage me to call him and ask him why he didn't show up. Yeah, but my family wasn't, weren't they weren't like the huggy, lovey dovey kind of, family and stuff. But yeah, we weren't things weren't talked about. It just that's just it didn't exist.
And that's what happens in a lot of families. And now you're hearing this from someone reflecting back on when she was 5, 6 years old, and that moment that her dad didn't show up, and she was hurt, sorry, disappointed, sad. Did you cry? And nobody bothered to console her, talk about her feelings, maybe just get her to laugh, get her mind off things. So for you mothers that are dealing with a situation like this, or even fathers, and the mom doesn't show up and the child's waiting, what you're saying is that if they would have talked to you or gotten on the phone so you can find out like what's going on, that might have lessened the blow just a little bit.
Yeah, I maybe have a better understanding, but it was like, well, he didn't show up. Like, what were you expecting? That's just who he is. He dropped you off one day and he never came back. So that's what I was left with, and that was the story that my dad took my mom out and ended up pregnant, and when I was born, he took me back to my grandpa and grandmother's house, and told them, hey, I can't find work, can you watch them for a couple of months, just until I can find a job to support them, and that he never came back.
So for you fathers that aren't showing up to pick up your kids, or even mothers, and I know you've kind of touched on it, but when you look back now as an adult in your 40s and you look back to that little Diana inside of you, what emotions now go through your mind? I know you said you thought about, was I not good enough? I think one you've talked about in the past is, was I worthy? What are some other things? Because what you're saying here is you're going to speak some truth here to mothers and fathers that are not showing up and how they're making their kids feel. Because and I'm just going to say to you fathers, a lot of times we blow it off like, oh, it's okay. They're going to go and watch TV, or they're going to go watch the video games, or they're going to go play with their friends. But no, it's deeper than that. It's a lot deeper.
It is, because even now as an adult, it still affects me in relationships, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship, whichever one. You grow up with even second guessing yourself, and just as little girls, I'm speaking for little girls, you go searching, for guys, whatever type of guys, and you're just looking for that love and protection. And that was one of the biggest things for me, is that, not having my dad around to protect me, because I was molested as a child by two separate men. And, I did speak up at some point, and it was like just brushed under the rug. Like it didn't happen. And for me, not having my dad, because dads are supposed to protect their children. And he wasn't there to protect me. And I grew up with a lot of anger and resentment towards him, because in all my relationships, now that I look back on it, I just wanted to be loved and protected and cherished.
And by your dad not showing up, that set off a series of emotions: not being loved, not being protected, not feeling worthy. And you said a lot of other things. And, we're going to dive into that door you just opened up about molestation. But I'm sure there's a lot of resentment and hurt that you hold towards your dad, because you said you wanted to be protected and he wasn't there for you. So you weren't protected. You were exposed.
Yeah. Just for me, I just feel, fathers are the protectors, of their families. And when you tell your kid, like, hey, I'm going to go pick you up, or hey, we're going to go hang out, and you don't show up, the first thought in their mind is like, what did I do wrong? Why am I not enough? Why doesn't he love me? You leave them with those thoughts. And at least for me, I held on to those feelings, up until until I'm 46 now. And I see how it has affected me. Even now, just my dad not showing up for me. It's just really important. Our dads matter. They matter too. And they play a big role. They have a big responsibilities, especially in daughters, because you're teaching them how they should be loved and respected and cherished. And when you don't show up, you're just teaching them that they don't matter.
Is it fair to say that if a dad shows up and he's there for his daughter, there's a bigger percentage of a chance that a molestation won't happen because their father's there to protect them?
I believe that. I very much so. That's how I feel, and that's how I view it. I may be wrong, but I feel, when dads are around, I don't know, it's less likely to happen.
So now you're a little child. Your dad hasn't shown up. You're left there in just a mess, emotionally, psychologically, still trying to learn how to process your feelings. And now you're exposed. And now a molestation happens. How old were you when this happened?
I think it might have started when I was about 5 or 6. And I believe it started with, I want to say, my dad's boyfriend at the time.
Your dad's boyfriend?
My mom's boyfriend.
Your mom's boyfriend, okay.
My mom's boyfriend. Yeah, Scott Owen. I believe it started with him, and then after him, it was my grandma's boyfriend. Because that took me all the way up until elementary school.
Well, let's start with your mom's boyfriend first. So this molestation started, and did you know at that time that something was wrong or something was off? Or
I'm sure at some point, I don't, you're a child, you don't know, he's the grown up. Now that I'm older, it's like they groom you, and you don't even know that you're being groomed. So it went on for years. I even remember one time, I know there had been shootings going on in the neighborhood, and him asking my mom, hey, let me take her back with me, just in case anything happens. So he took me to his mom's house. It wasn't far away from where we lived at the time in Highland Park. But I remember his mom even saying, like, what is she doing here? Where's her mom? Like, you need to take her back home. And I don't know what he said to her or if he ignored her, but I remember him making me sleep in the same bed with him and him trying to touch me feeling very afraid. And his bed was alongside the wall, but there was like a small crack where I kind of hit and kind of put my body into it so he wouldn't touch me. And I remember that night just crying, saying that I just wanted to go home. I wanted to go home. I wanted to go home. And at some point, he finally took me home, back to where my mom was.
And you said that when this was going on, you tried to tell somebody?
No, not at that point.
Okay.
I hadn't said anything yet.
Okay, so this time you felt something was wrong, but I know this is going back a long time, but Is it because you were scared, or you just didn't know if it was right or wrong, or what was going through your mind?
Honestly, I don't even know, to be honest with you. But I do remember the last time he did it. We had moved to Compton. I moved with my mom for a little bit. She was sleeping on the bed, and he had called me over to the door because he was in the hallway. He called me over the door and had me laid down, like half in, half out of the door, and pulling my pants down. And my mom was laying there asleep while he touched me. She had no clue.
And how did it finally stop? Did you stop it, or did something happen?
I don't know if I said something or they caught him. I honestly don't remember. I know I've blocked a lot out, but I know at some point my aunts and uncles and stuff like that had some kind of idea something was going on. Um, so I think that's when I moved back with my grandma to Almani. Um, and I stayed with her permanently. Like I didn't go back and forth.
Did any of your aunts or uncles ever confront him?
I don't think so. I don't know, to be honest with you.
So it was something that they felt was going on, but it just was not spoken about.
Yeah, because I know there was a letter that came to, and I don't know, it was him kind of confessing his love for me. And almost, I think the way they took the letter is that, like, he was actually in a relationship with me. I remember there was a letter that he had sent, and that made them very angry. Um, yeah, I just don't really remember it too much. Yeah.
Now,
Well,
do you wish your aunts or uncles would have confronted him in order to stop this?
absolutely. 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 You know, it's everybody's responsibility to protect a child, whether you're a grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, uncle, aunt, babysitter, brother, sister. If you know what's going on, it is your responsibility to protect that child.
No matter whether you offend anybody or not, no matter if you're
It
blowing it
doesn't
out of
matter
proportion.
if you break up the family or cause chaos, or it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Don't make that child go through life thinking they did something to deserve it and to feel dirty and ashamed. Don't let them carry that with them.
So now this happens. You move in with your grandma. So now you feel, at this point, you know something's wrong, but you just chose not to say anything. You just, okay. So now you think you're safe, and then your grandma gets a boyfriend.
Yeah, she has a boyfriend, and same thing.
How long after this? So this happened with your mom's boyfriend. You move in with your grandma. Is it a year later, 2 years later?
I honestly don't know. All I know is that it started happening again, and just thinking like, helpless that it's happening again. And at that time when that was happening, I did say something. And her not believing me. Either that or she just didn't want to deal with it.
That's your grandma?
Yeah. I mean, she either didn't believe me or she just didn't want to deal with it because a few years ago, I remember her telling me, oh, Oscar committed suicide. And I remember being like, good, that's what he fucking deserves. Like, good, because, and I know that's a horrible thing to say, but what these men did to me is even worse because they took my innocence away and I will never get that back. And I know I've brought it up to her, now that I'm an adult, and she's like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, I just don't say these things because I'm just a mean person. He was molesting me. I told you guys, and you guys didn't believe me. And she's like, no, she's like, that's not true. I don't, and it kind of just leaves you like, are you fucking kidding me? And that's why I say, it's all of our responsibilities is to protect these children because, they grow up not having a voice when you don't believe them that it's happening. They lose their voice. They lose their confidence. They lose their self-esteem. They lose so much.
It's unfortunate because especially in the Latino culture. And I'm sure there's a lot of other cultures, but it's just brushed under the rug. It's just not talked about. They know it's
Yeah.
happening, but it's just like it's the norm because it happened before, maybe to them or to their children, so forth. So it's a cycle that repeats itself, and a lot of times they make excuses. And I'm glad you said that of the things that it does to, and I'm not going to call you a victim. I'm going to say you're a survivor because being able to get here, speak here, and share your story, which I know is bringing up a lot of inner child trauma, but it's part of your healing too, to be able to share that. Now, you told your grandmother swept it under the rug. Did you try telling uncles or aunts that lived in the house?
I don't think so. I know once we moved to Chino, I was in elementary school. I was, I was either in the fourth or fifth grade when it stopped because my aunt had passed away and she left three kids behind. And they came to live with us. And my grandma's boyfriend had moved with us to that house. And he started doing it to one of my cousins. And the only reason why he was out of our lives was because she told someone at the school. And so they removed her out of the home and took him into custody, I believe.
And one of the things, one of the beautiful things now is that there's these laws that have been passed where, you have to report, whether it's a teacher, a hospital, a doctor. There's a whole series of professions that have to report whenever they feel something's going on, and that's something that's been enacted to help give children a voice back. These victims, these survivors, a voice back to be able to, when you have a family member that doesn't believe you, at least going and reporting it at school or to someone, and they're able to now take things and escalate them to get this to stop.
Yeah.
You've dealt with now, your dad not showing up for you. So is it fair to say that you struggle with abandonment issues?
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that you struggle with worthiness and a lot of this trauma, in a way, it sets you up for a lot of failure in your relationships? Is that
Yeah.
fair to say?
That's fair to say.
And how did this impact you when you went into your relationships in your teenage years?
I was very promiscuous. I used to use my body. I think that was my way of, I don't know, receiving love, validation. Yeah.
And in your relationships that you've had in the past, have you struggled with just the whole thought of, am I worthy now? Or can I be loved?
Yeah. I mean, teenage years, even to early adult, even I would say even now, the thoughts come up. It's a work in progress. Now that I've decided to, kind of heal. So it's a work in progress. It's hard. It really is. But yeah, it's a work in progress.
Now, in your teenage years, you got pregnant.
Yes. So I had my first child when I was 19. I got pregnant at 18, had her at 19. So him and I were together. She had, mom, dad, grandpa, grandma, her aunts. Because after I had her, I moved in with his family. So she was surrounded by love. And then I had my second. I believe I was 24 when I had him. But I was already separated with his dad, so he didn't get to have, and then grandpa was out of the house too. So he didn't get to experience that mom and dad and, having that unity. Um, so he's the one has struggled a bit more with being very rebellious and a lot of anger. Some towards me, but most towards his dad. But I got the brunt of it. But yeah, so, but he was always around. Always went to their soccer games. But he was more of a disciplinary. I think I was more. this on the softer side than he was. So I know I've passed on a lot of my shit to them. That's something that I'm also working out and forgiving myself, not being the mom that they needed. I could have done so much better, if I hadn't had all this trauma, and if I would have dealt with this trauma earlier in life. But yeah, it just gets passed down. If you don't deal with your shit, you just keep passing it on over and over and over.
So, as a survivor of molestation, were you overprotective of your kids?
Yeah, mostly with my daughter. She wasn't allowed to spend the night anywhere. Um, if her little friends wanted to spend the night, they were more than welcome to, but she was not allowed to spend the night anywhere. So, and that was, a, I know her dad was strict too, but on my part, it was more out of fear of it happening to her. And that was my way of protecting her.
Now, did you have conversations with their dad about your past childhood experiences?
I don't think so. I know we did talk about my dad a lot. I know he knew about that, but I don't think I ever told him about the molestation part.
Can I ask why?
I was probably ashamed and embarrassed. Yeah.
Do you think if you would have been open about it, it might have helped the relationship?
Most definitely. I think so. I mean, we were young too, but I think he would have had a better understanding on why I behaved the way I behaved.
Were there any conflicts, like because your daughter couldn't spend the night? Why he was a disciplinarian too, or you just kind of aligned on that? You didn't want her spending the night anywhere, and then
Yeah, I think we aligned on that, just for different reasons. Him because he is a lot, stricter than I was, and mine was out of fear.
and then what about, is it fair to say that you didn't grow up in a traditional home?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Is it fair to
Nothing.
say that it was broken?
Very much so.
So how is it you grow up in this broken home, and then now you meet someone, you get pregnant, and now you move into a house that's full of love, and there's grandparents and there's like it's a whole different dynamic. How is that for you? Was that an adjustment?
Oh man, yeah, it was. I remember the first time I met his family. I was like, oh my god, this is like the Brady Bunch. Because dad would always go to their soccer games. Mom always made dinner. They had chores. Yeah, they were just very, very different. I wasn't used to that. But yeah, it was almost watching the Brady Bunch because they were so united.
So united and a lot of love in the house.
Very much so.
Could you tell, based on their upbringing, how it shaped not only your ex-partner but also his siblings?
Yeah, they had structure. They had a lot of structure. School was very important. They had someone to stay on them to make sure they went to school and their homework was done, their clothes were washed, they had food. They didn't have those worries about money or what they were going to wear. Because I know the two older ones, well, even the little one when she was little, they all went to private schools. So they had to wear uniforms. So they never had to worry about, what they were going to wear to school, if they were going to have money for lunch, or, back in those days, if you got free lunches, they would give you a ticket. So if you lost those tickets, you weren't going to eat. So, yeah, I used to remember like, wow, like I didn't know a family can be like this.
Just with a little bit of structure, a little bit of love,
Yeah.
it changed the dynamics.
Yeah.
So how was your interactions with his siblings? Because now you're this broken girl from the hood, and now you're moving on up,
His sister
into
was
a
really
into
sweet.
middle.
No, his sister was very sweet. The younger sister, she was still little. She was like 8 when I met her, when I came into their lives. So, that was open arms right away. His mom, on the other hand, she was the real serious one. But I love her so much.
Do you think she took on the role of your mom?
I've never told her that though. Growing up with him, she was a hard woman, but I know I came from a good place. And I always seeked validation from her. But yeah, she was a mother figure to me. At the time I didn't I didn't connect it, but once you kind of remove yourself from that inner box, you can make more sense of, certain things. She was a tough cookie, but it came out of love. Grandpa, he was more easygoing, funny, more easygoing. Um, but yeah, but grandma was very, she was a tough cookie, you
So
know.
there's some healing happening right now. You're connecting some
Yeah.
dots. So is there going to be a call placed to the grandma, your kid's grandma, to let her know that how much of an impact she made on you? Or you're not ready to do that?
I'm not ready. I need to deal with my own shit first. But, I just got a phone call from her about an hour ago, just having. I think our relationship now is so much better that I don't live with her. Um, just regular conversation, and it's nice. And I love it. I love that she calls me. And it was just because of she was asking me because I had just bought myself a new car. Um, this past December. She has seen it a couple of times, but she's never asked me, "Oh, can I see the inside?" And she just recently asked to see the inside of my car, and I was kind of showing her all the features. And she looked at me and she's like, "This is a really nice car." So she was finding out, asked me how much I paid for it and whatnot, and she's like, "No," she's like, "You did a good job." She's like, "That's a really nice car." She's actually gonna get one herself, but on the lower end, because I splurged on my car. Um, but it was nice that, not that she was admiring me or anything like that, but just almost, I got a sense of like, she was proud of me. It felt really nice.
And
It was like getting her approval, like, you did good. Um, yeah, so she was tough.
and do you think those like wanting her approval, wanting other people's approval, wanting other people's validation, is it fair to say that that started from you as a child not
Definitely.
getting that love?
Definitely.
So there is connection with the inner child.
Yeah, of course. Definitely. You have that the yearn to be loved and just cared for. The unconditional love. To hear it, to feel it.
You mentioned that you lived with your grandma. So I'm assuming that your mom wasn't in the picture very long.
No, what's so funny is that, I know I'm harsh on my dad, but my mom grew up with some type of mental disability. So for me, it's like I can't really blame her. The only thing that I struggle with and I feel bad about is that growing up, I was embarrassed of her. I was so embarrassed of her. And I know that sounds so ugly and so hurtful, but I was very embarrassed because I just would always say, like, God, like, why is my mom so different? Why can't my mom be like everybody else? And I struggle with that, just feeling ashamed that she was my mom and it wasn't her fault, and, even with her disability, she's just such a happy person. Um, the times that, she has come down to visit or, I've gone to she's actually a very happy person. Very happy person. Very funny.
Now, for children that may be struggling with their parents who have mental disabilities and are going through what you're going through, are embarrassed, what can you tell them now as an adult looking back? Is there any advice you can give them to not lose that time or to, I know.
Like, I know, kids are gonna be kids, it's all part of growing up, but if I can go back, I would have loved on my mom. I would have been proud to be her daughter. She's so kind. She has such a big heart. I wish I had a better mindset. Maybe I could have helped her and got her into programs. I didn't know if these programs existed back in her, when I was younger or not, but I don't know. Maybe if I was more mature in that mentality, I could have seeked help for her or something.
Now, your family, didn't show a lot of love in the house. They swept things under the rug, with the molestations. Well, I'm just saying, your grandma. If your family would have been more open to maybe share more about your mom and maybe like, more about her disability and
Um,
educated you, I'm sure that would have helped.
yeah, definitely. I just knew something. She was just different, and I didn't understand why. And for me, it's like I don't understand why nobody ever did anything about it. She had plenty of sisters and brothers, and I don't want to point fingers. I'm sure they have their own traumas and stuff that they were dealing with growing up. But I wish, I don't know. I don't see how they wouldn't have known that there was something wrong because I was a child and I saw it.
And how's your mom doing? Like, who's taking care of her, or what's?
So she's in a program. So she lives up in Porterville. And she's doing great. Um, she has other roommates, but they have someone who's there 24/7 to make sure that, they're being watched if they fall or choke. Because my mom's a very high risk for choking and falling. So there has to be with someone with her 24/7. But she's doing good. She's doing good. She calls my grandma every day. They talk every single day. Except for these past couple weeks, my sister was telling me that she had broken her phone, so that's the only reason why they haven't talked lately. But yeah, as far as I know, she's doing good, and um,
And who's connected her with all these programs, or?
so my younger sister grew up with my mom, and she's always been a bright kid. Oh, a very smart kid. Um, but she ended up with my mom. Um, I don't even know how she got back with him, but she got back with the man that actually molested me, and they got married. So they ended up moving to not Victorville, Visalia. Yeah, so they went through whatever drama, and so it ended up being my sister and her, and they had a social worker. I don't know how they got into the program, but as my sister got older, she was able to seek the help that they needed, and my sister turned out pretty good, to be honest with you. She didn't grow up with her dad. Um, she grew up with mom. She had to be the parent. And, it sucks because my sister has a daughter now, and it just sucks that she wasn't able to enjoy to be, mother daughter. It was the daughter having to be the mother, But my sister took good care of my mom. Good care of my mom. Yeah. And still graduated top of her class with her bachelor's. Yeah, I'm proud to call her my sister.
And how's your relationship with your sister, being that you guys didn't grow up in the same house?
We love each other so much. I talked to her yesterday, text her today actually. And even though her and I didn't grow up together, I feel so connected to her. I have another sister, another brother, and they're from him. And I have no connection with them. I don't feel anything. But with her, for some reason, there's that very strong connection with her. So strong.
Now, what happened to the boyfriend of your mom? So
Oh,
they lived up
her
as well.
husband now at the
Yeah.
time.
Oh, yes.
Well, they got divorced. I don't know if that was my mom's doing. I'm just, and I would always, and every time I would have a conversation with Christina, when she was little, because she even told me, like, she remembers me always asking her, "Are you okay?" Just asking her weird questions like, "Does he make you sit on his lap?" Or, "Has he ever touched you before the way you don't, the way, if you don't feel comfortable? Does he touch you in a way where you don't feel comfortable?" I would always ask her the questions. And she's like, "No, yeah, he never touched her." But what I do know is that he did touch my other sister, his own daughter.
Looking back now, how old were you when you would ask your sister?
I know she was really little. Her and I, see, I'm 46. She's gonna be in her 30s. There's a big gap between her and I. So there's a big gap between her and I.
You think you could have done more to just make sure to protect your little sister? Do you wish you would have maybe called the authorities or just made it be known, or like looking back now that there's more wisdom?
I wish I would have. Definitely. I definitely wish, yeah. I think for me it was just I didn't want to remember. I didn't want to remember that ugliness. I didn't want any part of that.
So I want to touch on also something that happened in your childhood, some trauma that happened that kept you in guilt for a long time, and that was your little sister. And you can just share with the audience who your little sister was, and then you can go ahead and tell the story of this situation that happened, that unfortunate situation that is going to shed light on the process of grieving.
Yeah. My little sister Virginia. Her and I didn't grow up together. Uh I lived with my grandma Nalmani. She lived in Highland Park with my mom. We went to go visit them. We were going to the park, I believe, that day. And they're like, "Oh, let's take Virginia." And I was that little 11, 12-year-old kid. "No, I don't want to take her. No, 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 no." And I got my way. She didn't go. We get home later that evening, and I know my grandma gets a phone call, and she's like, "Oh, está bien Lupe? Like, is Lupe okay?" And I'm thinking something happened to my mom. And we all get in the car, we go to the hospital, and everybody's at the hospital. And I'm just like, "Why is everybody here?" Like, now I'm like, "Oh my God, is my mom okay?" I'm like, "Is my mom okay?" They're like, "Yeah, she's fine, she's fine." And I sat down by one of our family friends, and I remember her, like, kind of like stroking my hair. And then they called me to the back, and my grandma is sitting on one side of the room, my mom's sitting on the other one, on the other side, and then my sister's laying in the hospital bed with just a sheet laying down. So I walk in the room, and I thought she was sleeping, and I went up to her, and I, was like, "Virginia." And I look over, I'm like, "Why isn't she waking up?" And they're like, "She died." And I just remember thinking, like, if I would have had allowed her to go to the park that day, she would still be here. And that was a guilt that I carried with me for 20 plus years, maybe 28 years. I carried the blame, because I didn't allow her to go to the park that day. And I couldn't talk about her for the longest time. I couldn't go to her grave. I couldn't mention her name. But I carry that guilt because I felt like if I didn't carry it, like, that was me forgetting her. But it wasn't until the mushroom ceremony I went to have you to thank for it. So I did a mushroom ceremony.
Let me just stop you there before you go into that, because I do want to point something out, and that's that. So now you're in your 40s, you're carrying these guilt, this shame, abandonment, unworthiness, all these different things from your childhood into your teenage years, into early adulthood, and then into adulthood as a parent, as a mother, girlfriend, different relationships, broken. And now you're in your 40s and you have all that shit bottled up inside. Is that fair to say? And then the opportunity comes up to sit with plant medicine, which is a mushroom ceremony. And a big part of that was because you were on my real estate team, and I went and sat with ayahuasca and plant medicine, and I came back fucking nuts, happy, right? I came back,
I
people thought,
remember saying, like, who are you? Like, you're like a whole other, you even look different when you came back. I just remember, like, what in the world did this guy go do?
people thought I joined a fucking cult.
I know.
But I wanted everybody to do it. I wanted everybody to sit with mushrooms and ayahuasca. And
Yep.
I wanted everybody to experience the peace, the learning to love yourself. I wanted to set everybody free. I wanted everybody to feel what it felt like to live from the heart. So so I came back. I'm fucking. You need to do it, and you need to do it. You're fucked up, and you need to do it. So I think I was almost getting in fights because I was
Oh
just
my God.
pointing out everybody's traumas. But there was resistance from a lot of people. A lot of relationships ended, friendships, and so forth from it.
Yeah.
Um, but an opportunity arose to go sit in ceremony, and you had nothing to lose, right? You're all fucked up. It's fair to say, bunch
Yes.
of emotions, and and I can go through the list again. I'm not going through, but just a lot of trauma, hurt, and pain.
Yeah.
So you have nothing to lose. So you go now. Let me ask you a question before I go there. Did you ever talk to any counselors, psychologists, therapists over the years to start to heal?
Yes,
You did.
I did.
Okay,
Um,
let's talk on that because
um, I did. I started going in my earlier adulthood. Yeah. And a lot of it had to do with me being molested and not remembering a lot of it. And I know my therapist said it was like your brain blocked it, and it was to protect myself that I blocked so much of it. They're like, we can hypnotize you and bring back those memories, but why would you want to remember those details?
wait a minute. Looking back now, because now you've sat with plant medicine, so do you think it would have been beneficial to be hypnotized and go back and resurrect those memories to deal with them?
No,
No, not at that time.
absolutely not.
Okay.
Why? Like, why would I want to go revisit something so horrible? Why? At least that's what they told
Well, I'm just going to challenge you on that because when you sit with plant medicine, it allows you to go back and unravel it, but it also allows you to release it. So, but yeah, like I said, a whole different context, a different type. This is why they say that the reason therapy doesn't work is because it's external. Therapy is external and healing is internal, and it starts from within you. But okay, we're not going to shit all over your
me.
therapist and okay,
Well, I
and,
mean,
and, and
I'm
different
not
therapy.
saying
We're not
that
going to shit.
therapy doesn't work. It obviously helps to talk about it, but to actual deal with it and heal from it, you're right. It starts within, and that therapy is external. But yeah,
And just public service announcement. I'm not shitting on therapists or therapy or counseling. I'm just saying that from my experience, it takes a lot longer
yeah,
versus going in and sitting with plant medicine. And I'm not saying plant medicine's for everybody, but they say doing plant medicine is like doing 6 to 8 years of therapy in 46 hours. Is that fair to say?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So you go and you sit in the mushroom ceremony.
Wait,
Oh, yes.
I was
Oh,
shitless. Remember?
oh yes.
I
Shitless.
was
You didn't want to go.
scared. I didn't want to go. I was like, I'm turning back. Like, no, absolutely not. But then my son calls me. Hey, mom, like, don't be nervous. It's going to be okay. Like, don't fight it. Like, you're going to be okay. At the time, I was like, how the fuck do you know? We won't go that, we won't talk about that right now. um, so I end up going, I end up doing it. And my intentions going in had nothing to do with what my intentions were going in. Um, I dealt with my sister and forgiving myself because it was like my mind and my heart didn't match. Like I knew it wasn't my fault, but I just couldn't let go of that guilt. Like I was saying, like I felt like if I forgive myself, or if I let that pain go, I was forgetting her. And it's hard to explain unless you've done a ceremony or mushrooms.
And a spiritual ceremony because
Exactly.
taking mushroom,
Exactly.
just
Yeah, it wasn't
control
just
with the
exactly.
shaman,
It was,
with yes,
yeah.
vibrational music and intentions and so forth. So just PSA,
Yeah.
this is a structured ceremony with the
Exactly.
shaman, and you're going in and you're doing it with intentions. And now you're not doing it for recreation. You're going
Right.
to do it to heal.
Exactly. So when I went in, my intentions were had to do more with my dad, and that's not where I needed to start. I needed to start with releasing myself of that guilt because it was literally killing me. I didn't see her physically, but I know I got to play with her. I got to talk to her, and she had told me, like, it's not your fault. You were only 12. How could you have known that I was going to die? You were just a kid. You're being a normal, bratty kid. It was like a normal sibling kind of rival, kind of, not rival thing, but you know what I mean. And I was able to release that guilt.
Is it fair to say that that ceremony finally allowed you to go and visit her at the cemetery?
I got to go and talk to her and not feel that guilt and not feeling, she's there because of me, because, she's right. I was just a child myself. How could I have known that, she was going to pass that day? But I took it upon myself to take that guilt, and it wasn't for me. I'm the type of person, I care about people just in general. And it showed me that if I continue to take other people's problems as if they were my own. And it showed me this old, like, shriveled up old lady with the nested hair. It like kind of showed me, like, if you keep going the way you're going, this is what's going to be left of you. Nothing. You need to allow people to figure out their own problems. They're not yours to deal with or to take on as your own. And I know one of your daughters came into my journey as well, and I kept looking for her, and it did show me, like, her pain and her pain that had to do with the relationship with her mom, and of course my little dog. She came into my little journey too. But yeah, it was a very beautiful experience, and I'm glad that I went through it that day. I went through it that day. And I think everyone should experience it at least once, because it's so beautiful, and it goes quick. Like, it seemed like I was in it for like 5 minutes, literally. I was like, "What? What do you mean it's over?" But it was such a beautiful experience.
So is it fair to say that your true healing started when you decided to sit with plant medicine?
Yeah, definitely.
And there were a lot of revelations that happened. And then you've also sat with Wachuma.
Yes.
So you sat with, Mushroom, which was Los Niños, and
Hmm.
then Wachuma, which is grandfather.
Yeah, they're
And that
like, it's gonna be easier on you. Yeah, right. Grandpa slapped me in my face. Yeah, that was actually a good one too. That one taught me, even with all my scars and my trauma, that I'm still a beautiful person. It doesn't matter that I was molested. It doesn't matter that I didn't have my dad. It doesn't matter that I made mistakes. None of my scars mattered. I was still a beautiful, giving, loving person.
and if anybody's feeling called to sit with plant medicine, please send us a message. Reach out to us because we can put you in contact with shamans for ayahuasca, Wachuma, or even mushrooms. But you've tried other methods, therapy, counseling, and maybe you feel like you're just ready for something different, then definitely reach out to us, and we can definitely put you in the right, direction with people that, where safety is going to be your number one priority. Now, as we start to bring this podcast to a close, how's your relationship with your dad? Have you talked to him? What's going on? Let's fast forward into the present.
So yes, I've talked to him. Like I said, the whole movie thing came up, and one of my friends was actually on your
Wait,
podcast.
wait, wait. Before we go there, wait. Let me set the context for it.
Okay.
So
Sorry.
your dad's been trying to get a hold of you for a couple of years, well, on and off
Hmm.
throughout your life, and never been able to. Either there were blockage from other families, or you just weren't ready to receive it. But now what's starting to unravel is that there's been some moments where he's tried to reach out, he's tried to find you, but you weren't ready to receive it. He's called you in the past, but you just disconnected. What changed?
So one of my friends, like, she didn't have her real dad in her life. And at some point in her life, they were supposed to move in with each other. He ended up in the hospital and he never came back. He passed away. And she said something like, she never got the chance to ask those questions. And she's like, I wish I had that chance. And it hit really close. And I'm like, wow, my dad's alive. He's here and there, he's reached out and I have the opportunity to talk to him and ask him the questions that I have. So because of her, and I have her to thank, and you too, you've always pushed me, and I just, like you said, just wasn't ready. I was very angry. I called him and I'm glad I did. I'm so glad I did, and he's like, I'm so sorry, I wasn't a good dad and I wasn't around and I lost so much time with you. He was like so choked up and just like crying and stuff. And we talked for a little bit and we have plans meeting up, this month coming up, and he wants me to meet my brother. I have other siblings, but I think my brother's the one that lives near him. And I have a niece and nephew. But yeah, I'm glad I made that call because unlike my friend, I have the opportunity to ask my questions.
So it sounds like your healing journey is moving a lot faster than you even thought.
Yeah.
So now you're starting the reconnection with your father, whatever that looks like. Can I call him your father?
Yeah.
Okay. And it sounds like you're going to reach out to your ex kind of mother-in-law, your ex-boyfriend's mom, and let
At
her
some
know that
point.
at some point.
At
But
some
that's another part of the healing, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. And it sounds like at some point there's going to be hopefully some conversations with your grandma before, while she's still on this earth, to really speak your truth.
Yeah, because, we were on the phone for a little bit and he had so many details of my family, like my uncles and my aunts, and I'm like, what? What? What do you mean? You didn't know? You didn't know this? You didn't know that? I'm like, no. I'm just like, what? And I came home. Actually, I don't know if it was. I think it was today. I asked one of my other cousins. I said, "Hey, did Grandpa sell cars?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "How did I not know this?" He's like, "I don't know." He's all. That's why, Uncle Chava, got into the business because he used to work for Grandpa. So my dad used to work for my grandpa at some point, selling cars, and he used to come over to my grandpa's and grandma's house to deliver money, but that's how he met my mom. I never knew the story on how he met my mom. And I've always wanted to know that.
And the funny thing is, as you're being open to at least allow him to speak his truth, whatever that is, it just kind of brings that old adage into to the table that there's two sides to every story. So
Yeah.
you grew up believing that you weren't worthy. Why weren't you good enough? Why wasn't there for you? But then as you're starting to realize, well, maybe he may not have been there in your early childhood years, but he was trying to reconnect with you over the years.
Yeah.
And hopefully that is going to start to give you some healing, to start to bring closure to that abandonment, that unworthiness. Wow, this is going to be 2024 is going to be a busy year for you.
Very, he even shared that he was trying to find one of my other siblings. And I just told him, you know what, Dad, don't ever give up. it's never too late. It's never too late. And I know I was like, I'll never admit it. But I love my dad, and I get to have the opportunity to get to know him.
And a whole nother family,
Yes.
brothers and sisters and aunts and
Yeah.
uncles
Yeah.
and
Definitely.
wow, it's almost like it's almost a rebirth.
Yeah. Yeah. I never thought about it that way, but yeah, definitely.
I don't know. I'm kind of feeling that there's going to be some healing with you and your mom at some point in the near future.
Yeah.
I think there's some conversations that need to be had where you speak your truth and you start to bring closure to that too.
Yeah. Definitely. We she deserves it. Not even that. It's a part of the chapter that needs to be closed because, I'm not that little girl anymore, defenseless, helpless. I'm not I'm not that person anymore. I have a voice.
It sounds like when your sister comes down in the next couple of weeks, it sounds like there's going to be some powerful, magical conversations, not just surface level,
Yeah.
but I think this is going to be the opportunity to really dive deep and really start to heal the
Yeah.
relationship. And I don't know
Yeah.
if that's the right word, but the distance.
Mhm. Yeah. Because she has my niece. She's big already. And time flies. Time flies. And just and and I've told you this, all the time. And actually taking my own advice is what I'm doing, is that forgiveness is not for the other person, and it's not saying that it didn't happen, but it's for you so you can move on, so you can heal and just release all that doesn't serve you. Forgiving others is for yourself, even forgiving my own self. I think that part for me is going to be the hardest.
This has been a powerful episode. Any final thoughts you want to share before I close out the podcast?
Parents, if you say you're going to show up, show up. If your kids tell you something's going on, believe them. Don't allow them to grow up with shame and feeling unworthy, unloved, that there's something wrong with them. Just love on them, believe them, show up, be present, show up. Show up when you're going to say you're going to show up.
As I close out this episode of Fatherhood Voices, the words that come to my mind are a journey of redemption, a journey of survivor, a survivor seeking redemption, a story of hope, that it's never too late to start the process of healing, that even with all the setbacks that life threw at you, the hurt, the pain, now in your 40s, there's still hope. That now, as you're 46 years old, over the last 2 years, you've started the process of healing. And I'm going to take it a step further and say something that I like to say. It's healing little Diana, healing your inner child. And through your healing, you're going to help heal your children and your grandchildren, your future grandchildren, and your future great-great-grandchildren. And not only that, you're going to help heal generations backwards of your ancestral lineage. Because by bringing this to the forefront, by speaking your truth, that's going to start the real conversations of healing.
Can I just say one more thing?
Absolutely.
For all the women who try to keep their children away from their dads, don't do it. Fathers matter. They play a very important part in their lives. Don't do it. Just because they're not in love with you anymore, let them be dead.
And this is coming from a true survivor that faced a lot of obstacles growing up. Fatherhood Voices, where we're here to break the toxic cycle. Thank you.
Thank you so much.